I have some questions. As you mentioned, you have studied it, the difference between arteries and veins.
Yes.
Yes. You're mainly based on these colors and the functions and the structure of and arteries are red colors and veins are blue colors. Arteries carry oxygenated blood from the heart to the bodies, and veins deoxygenate blood from the body to heart. So my question is that what is capillarity? Is it oxygenated blood or is deoxygenated blood? My second question is that as you mentioned that in case of heart failures, there's a abnormal share of jugular veins. There's some there are more beakers and flatters.
Say more.
Beakers.
Beakers means?
Beakers are large.
Larger. The heart you mean is larger? Yeah, exactly. And flooding?
Flatting.
Flatting means?
Flatting is just flatter.
Flutter means, tell me?
Flatter means just more flat.
Flat. And what's more flat? What?
Is it only in the case of heart failure? Is a possibility of some like aging process? Like I normally see that all people are more bigger than normal persons.
You mean their heart? Yeah. Thank you. Good. So the first question, what's your name, please? Pamela. Pamela said that arteries and veins are different, and we discussed that yesterday. And he mentioned that structurally they're different. Arteries have thicker walls, veins have thinner walls. And then he said functionally they have different purposes. Arteries are taking the oxygenated blood from the heart to the body, the tissues in the body. And the veins are bringing the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. And his question was, what about capillaries? Do they have oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood? And the answer is mixed. Okay? So the capillaries are the very smallest blood vessels. Okay? And in the capillaries, red blood cells can only pass like one by one. Okay? Because they're very, very small capillaries. And in fact, capillaries kind of join in the periphery, out, not at the heart, but out in the tissues. They join the arteries and the veins. They're kind of a connection. So at the beginning of the capillaries, on the arterial side, they'll be oxygenated. In the middle of the capillaries, between the arteries and the veins, they'll be half oxygenated, partially oxygenated. And then on the distal, or the end of the capillaries where they join the veins, the blood will be deoxygenated. Okay? So the capillaries are basically a connection between the arteries and the veins. And they're very, very small, so they can get very minutely, very precisely out to the tissues. Whereas the big arteries, they can't really get out to the actual tissues and cells. The capillaries can. Now, your second question was, tell me again, the second question was?
Is it possible to...
right. I think I remembered. So, yes, an enlarged heart is not seen in a normal person. Okay? If someone has an enlarged heart, it doesn't mean heart failure. So all large hearts do not mean heart failure. Okay? Some large hearts don't work very well, and then you can have heart failure. Okay? Older people, from a modern medicine perspective, their hearts are not bigger than younger people. Okay. If they have heart failure, or maybe other causes of cardiomegaly, large heart, then their hearts can be larger. Is that okay? I'm guessing that in Tibetan medicine, you say, or the Gyushi says, older people have larger hearts. Is that true? Is that what you've learned in the Gyushi or in the classes? Yes? Yeah.
My question is not this. My question is, as you mentioned yesterday, that jugular veins is much bigger when a person got heart disease.
Yes.
My question is that if I was not wrong, I saw that all people are much bigger jugular veins.
Oh, I see. Good question. Yeah, the answer is yes. On many old people, the veins can be enlarged, okay? But they're dependent. In this way, dependent means gravity dependent. So if we're sitting and standing most of the day, the veins lower down in the legs and the ankles, they'll be swollen, they'll be bigger, okay? But not the ones in the neck or the upper part of the body, again, if we're sitting or standing most of the day. So in heart failure, all the veins back up. We saw the picture of the neck veins, the jugular vein that was big in heart failure. That you will not see in older people unless they have heart failure. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Good. Thank you for asking again and clarifying. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the physiology of heart failure? Okay, so let's move on to physiology. Oh yes, please.
When we talk about autoimmune disease, it says that our own body immune system responds in a negative way.
Yes.
So what are the cause or conditioning cause of autoimmune disease, and why is it so that women are more prone to this disease than men?
Good questions. I don't know. We usually say that autoimmune diseases we don't know the cause. I mean, in general, we say there's some problem with the immune system because it starts attacking our own body as if at least one part of our own body, for example, the joints or certain organs in the body, as if those joints or organs were foreign, means not our own. Okay? But why that happens, we don't really know. Some research is suggesting that some of it may be due to viral diseases, to viruses, but we still are not sure. Why it happens more in women, I also don't know. When I was a first-year medical student, between my first and second year, I did a project where I was sent out to the home of people that had lupus. Lupus is an autoimmune disease, and it affects the joints, but it also can affect any organ in the body. The kidneys, it can affect the heart, it can affect the lungs, it can affect the brain. It can basically affect any organ in the body. And so I was, with their permission, they signed consent forms, these people with lupus. It's actually, the full name is SLE, Systemic Lupus Erythematosus. That's the full name. We just, for short, we call it lupus. Systemic, SLE, Systemic Lupus Erythematosus. Erythematosus means red. And sometimes they get a very unique rash on the cheeks. We call that a butterfly rash because it looks kind of the shape of a butterfly. Okay. And it turns out that all the people I saw were women. And it turns out that in lupus, about 90% of people that get lupus, systemic lupus throughout the body. There's another localized lupus, which usually occurs on the scalp, discoid lupus, but with systemic lupus erythematosus, SLE, about 90% are women. And we don't know why. One thing that's very interesting, and this is what I was actually doing a little bit of study about, almost all the patients with about a year or so before they are diagnosed with lupus, they've had an extremely traumatic event in their lives. So I interviewed one woman whose son had been killed about a year before her diagnosis, and other things like that. Do you have enough handouts? Are there enough for everybody? Did anybody not get a handout? Raise your hand if you did not receive a copy of the slides. So we're okay. We need 3 in the back. Do we have more? 3 people in the back here. You can take mine also. Maybe you have enough. Enough? Okay, good. So it seems that with lupus, a serious emotional trauma can precipitate or cause lupus. Why it's more common in women, we don't know. Another common autoimmune disease is called rheumatoid arthritis, RA, rheumatoid arthritis. And that one affects the joints, mostly in the hands, but it can affect any joint. And sometimes in the more severe form can affect the lungs. And sometimes also the, I'm not sure if it's associated with the lymphatic system, but they get nodules. Do you know what a nodule is? It's a little mass, kind of a hard mass, often about 1 centimeter. And they get them usually here, on the back of the forearm. So when you have someone, particularly a woman, maybe young or middle-aged with arthritis, always feel here and see if you find a nodule, a little bump. Okay? That's a sign of RA, rheumatoid arthritis. And in rheumatoid arthritis, it's more women than men. I don't think it's 90% women. I don't know the number. I would guess 2/3, roughly, would be women and maybe 1/3, or even 3/4 women and 1/4 men, something like that. Good questions. If you figure that out, maybe you get a Nobel Prize in medicine. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so let's move on. So what is pathophysiology? What's patho? Sorry? Disease, exactly. So you know the field of pathology? It's kind of studying the tissues, the organs and tissues and cells in the laboratory of disease. So patho means disease. And what's physiology? What does that mean? I'm sorry? Again, please? I can't hear. Sorry? Biology? Biology. Yeah, kind of. Physiology is a type of biology. Is it structure or function? Function, right? It's not anatomy. This is different than anatomy. This is more the function. So it happens on many levels. It happens on the biochemistry level, which is chemistry, okay? It also happens on the tissue level, okay? So different enzymes and reactions that are happening in the tissue. It's also like biochemistry, but happening in the tissue, cells and tissue. And it also happens in the organs, okay? So physiology is generally related to biochemistry, okay? But it can happen in the cells, the tissues, and the organs, okay? So it's the functional side of things, whereas anatomy is the structural side. Okay, good. So pathophysiology, so we're talking about the kind of the biochemistry and the and the physical chemistry reactions of cells and tissues to disease. Okay? And that is similar, that's a type of biology, yes. Good. So now we're talking about heart failure, right? Okay. It's debilitating. What is debilitating? Debilitating condition. What's that? It means it knocks you down. You know, it's tough. Debilitating means it's hard on you. Debilitating. Okay. Debilitating condition. So it means it's kind of serious. You could say it's serious. Okay? Has a strong effect on your body and probably also on your mind and your emotions too, right? Okay. It's characterized by shortness of breath. What's the technical word for shortness of breath? Please? Louder? I can't quite hear, I'm sorry. What, do you remember? Have it in your notes? It's remember dis means difficulty, right? And then the second part of the word? Nia. Good, with a P, right? Good, very good. And what is nia? We usually say nia. What does that mean? Lungs, yeah, or breathing. Great. So difficulty breathing or shortness of breath, the technical term is dyspnea. Great, great. Also fatigue. You know what fatigue is? Yeah, you get real tired, yeah. Okay. And exercise intolerance. A lot of fancy words. That just means you're not able to do much exercise. You're too tired. Okay? Okay. Worldwide prevalence. Prevalence, there's two words. One is prevalence and the other is incidence. They're similar, but statistically they're a little different. Okay? So they kind of mean how often does this disease occur? Okay? And as I said, prevalence and incidence are similar, but not exactly the same. You have to learn that in statistics, what the actual difference is, okay? But it basically means how often does it occur. Of heart failure has increased over the last 10 years. We're seeing more of it, okay? And the trend is expected to continue to increase as the population ages. So this is telling us that heart failure is more common in the elderly, right? Okay. So that was kind of a little bit of your question. So it's not just getting old, but it's being more susceptible to then getting heart failure as an older person, okay, to get a big heart. In 1997, so what is that, 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, they took some data and they found about 6 million people in the US. So today it must be more than that, okay? And about 23 million worldwide, okay? I don't know where they studied when they say worldwide. It doesn't usually mean worldwide. They usually don't go to India, or not much. They don't go to Africa. They don't go to Tibet, and, you know. But they say worldwide, so we don't know exactly. Okay. So it's common, and these people are suffering quite a bit. It's a hard disease. It's a debilitating condition because you can't do much when your heart fails. You know, and some people are bedridden, or they can't get out of their rooms, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So the American Heart Association, sometimes that's abbreviated as AHA, okay? American Heart Association, defines 4 classes of heart failure, okay? Class 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, class 1, people are pretty normal in terms of what they can do, okay? On the other end, class 4, we call end stage. Those people can't do much at all, okay? They're so out of breath, even walking to the toilet, that becomes a major difficulty for them. Okay? Because they can't move around much. They're just so out of breath and so fatigued, so tired. There's no definitive treatment. Okay. We keep them comfortable. Maybe oxygen, and we have a number of drugs we give to try to keep the heart a little bit stronger, but they don't do much and they certainly cannot cure. Okay. It is actually more serious than cancer. Okay, it's a big deal. Okay. Most patients will die this is now stage 4, end stage or stage 4 heart failure. Most of them will die within months or years, several years. So once you're diagnosed with stage 4 heart failure, that's quite serious. Okay, most people don't live very long. Okay. Okay, so this first sentence, which is 3.5 lines, heart failure is a clinical syndrome. Okay, that's not important. Means we diagnose it based on the history and physical of the patient and maybe the chest X-ray. Okay, so it's a clinical syndrome. Can result from either structural or functional heart problems, cardiac disorders. Okay, and specifically what happens, it's an impairment or kind of a partial blockage, okay, of the ability of the ventricle, and in a moment we'll go to the anatomy. There are 4 chambers in the heart. I think you all know that. Do you know that? Yeah. And there are 2 big and 2 small ones, right? 2 big chambers and 2 small chambers or rooms in the heart. What are the 2 big chambers called? They're ventricles. Okay. And what are the 2 small chambers called? Atrium. Yeah, good. So there's 2 atrium and 2 ventricles in the heart. And in just a moment I'll go through the anatomy, so we'll look at that in more detail. But here it's saying that the ability of the ventricle to fill with blood, okay, or eject, pump it out, is impaired. So the ventricle is either not getting the blood or not able to push it out, pump it out, eject it. Okay? That's the basic problem with heart failure. Okay. Most of the time, the problem is not being able to eject the blood. Why? Why not? Why can't the ventricle or the heart eject or pump the blood? Well. Why not? What's the problem here?
Maybe it's a problem with
Muscle. Which muscle? Muscle in my arm? No, of course not. Heart muscle, exactly. So most of the time with heart failure, the problem is the muscle of the heart is weak. Exactly. Exactly. Pamela, he knows this stuff. Good. Very nice. Or he has good reasoning. He listens well and he reasons well. Good. Very nice. Okay. Changes to the heart muscle, just as Pamela said, okay? The heart muscle gets weakened, and particularly in the ventricle, because that's where the pumping goes on. And there are 2 ventricles. There's a right and a left. And so in just a few minutes we'll explain that, okay, what the function of 2 ventricles is. Why do we have 2 ventricles? Okay? So it's changes to the heart muscle tissue, okay, just heart muscle, and changes to the function. So it's both an anatomic and a functional problem, a structural and a functional problem. And we'll explain that. Got some rain, huh? Also, there are neurohormonal changes. What's that? What's neuro? Huh? Sorry? Nerves, exactly. Nerves, and what's the biggest nerve? Brain, lepa. Yeah. So it's something to do with the brain or the nerves, good. And what's hormonal? What's hormonal? What are hormones? You guys have raging hormones at your age, okay? Men and women. Those are the sex hormones, okay? Estrogen, testosterone. But these are not the sex hormones. This is the neurohormones. So what are the neurohormones? What are we talking about here? Any idea?
Serotonin, noradrenaline, like this.
Sorry?
Serotonin, melatonin.
Serotonin, melatonin, not quite, not for here, not quite. Those are hormones, and those are brain hormones. Okay. So hormones are proteins, they're often enzymes, and they work to stimulate different endocrine systems in the body. We talked about endocrine yesterday. Who had the question about endocrine? Remember we talked a little bit about the different endocrine. Somebody was sitting over here the first day. It was a woman.
Just named out some of the glands.
Yeah, who was that? Yeah, I thought so. Good. Very nice, very nice. Those are endocrine glands. The thyroid, we mentioned over here, the testes in the man and the ovaries in the woman, and the pancreas, and you told me the adrenals that sit on top of the kidneys. Those are all the endocrine glands in the body, and they make hormones, and they interact with parts of the brain. You told me pituitary, right? And we also someone mentioned the hypothalamus. Pamela? Someone mentioned hypothalamus. Yes, I think so, yes? Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, all those are interacting with the endocrine organs, okay? And the messenger is a hormone, okay? That comes usually from the pituitary or deeper in the brain, the hypothalamus, and it sends out messages to the endocrine glands, and usually the message is make more or make less. It's the usual message. So when a message goes out to the thyroid, and the messenger is called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? TSH, you'll see that a lot. Thyroid stimulating hormone. When the message comes out from the pituitary, which is deep in here, right? Between here and that little stalk hanging down the pituitary from the bottom of the brain. And the message goes out into the blood, the TSH is the messenger. It says, it stimulates the thyroid to make more thyroid hormone. Okay? So if it's high, it means that the body doesn't have enough. If the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, is low, there's not much stimulus to the thyroid to make more thyroid. Why? The body has enough. Okay? That's the common way that these hormones work. Same thing with the ovaries of the testicles. If we need, so let's say pregnancy, where we need a lot of estrogen at the beginning, the follicular stimulating hormone, FSH, LH and FSH. FSH should be very high because it's driving the ovary to make more estrogen because it's required for pregnancy. Okay? When a woman menstruates, the first part of the first 2 weeks of the cycle, the estrogen is also high. It's building up a lining inside the uterus to be able to support a pregnancy, if a pregnancy comes about. And then in the middle of the month, 2 weeks later, if there's no pregnancy, then the woman doesn't need that extra lining in the uterus. So the estrogen goes down, and the other one, LH, rises, luteinizing hormone. And it basically tells the uterus, sorry guys, we don't need that extra lining. There's no pregnancy. And then at the end of the month, the woman menstruates. Okay? job of the hormones. Okay, and that happens in all the endocrine systems that we talked about. So this one is the brain system. Okay, it's happening with the brain. The brain is not exactly an endocrine organ, but it does have hormones that control some of the function. Okay, and in this case, it's controlling the heart. Not just the heart. So, for example, adrenaline is one of these neurohormones. Adrenaline. Okay, another one is cortisol. Okay, and these are hormones that are put out by the brain or some of the endocrine organs, maybe the adrenal glands for cortisone, telling the heart, hey, we need more power here. We need to contract better. Your muscle, your heart muscle is weak. We need to get it stronger. So it's trying to increase the ability of the heart to pump stronger heart muscle. Okay? That's basically what these neurohormones are trying to do. Okay. And vascular functional changes. So if we're in heart failure, our patient started out with a high blood pressure, you remember? Because she had a lot of adrenaline going. And adrenaline raises the blood pressure. But it didn't last. As I told you, not long afterwards, her blood pressure came quite low. And that's usually what we see. And we saw that in the diagrams, that with heart failure, usually the blood pressure is low. Okay? So what happens to the vessels, the vascular changes, is that they constrict, the arteries constrict, because it's trying to preserve the blood pressure. It's a closed system. The arteries and the veins and the heart's a closed system. So if the pressure is low, one way to try to raise the blood pressure is to constrict or close down, partially close down the arteries to try to increase the pressure in the system, the blood pressure. Okay. So those changes are happening trying to help the heart pump better, okay, from different perspectives. One perspective is the heart muscle, one is from the hormones, and one is from the blood vessels, all trying to help the heart function better, pump better. And these changes are often referred to as a vicious cycle of heart failure. What's a vicious cycle? Can someone tell me that term in Tibetan? First, let's explain what it is. What is a vicious cycle? What does vicious mean? If you have a very mad, angry dog coming at you, we would say that's a vicious dog. Okay? Usually vicious means harmful. Okay? Harmful. So what's a harmful cycle? A cycle is something that recurs again and again, right? It goes in a circle, it kind of cycles. So what's a vicious cycle? What's the meaning here? And then we'll try to find the Tibetan term. A vicious cycle means that so let's say we have several things happening in a cycle. So the things that are happening at the beginning, they make things worse. And that keeps happening. So you kind of you go down. In this case, the heart failure gets worse. It causes a vicious cycle. It's trying to compensate through the heart muscle, through the hormones, and through the blood vessels, trying to compensate and make this heart work better. But it ends up doing the opposite. It makes things worse. And that's called a vicious cycle. So, do you have any idea what you might call this in Tibetan? Cycle is korlo, right? Korlo. So, vicious means harmful. So how would you put that together in Tibetan? Huh? I know we're not sure, but just if you were to guess, what would you say in Tibetan? A vicious cycle. Maybe don't have this concept. Maybe. I'm sorry? Korchuk Lopa. Lokpa is opposite? Does that mean opposite? Lokpa? We have that in logic? Lokpa. No. Huh? Dokchok. That's what I thought. Oh, it's not. Not. Oh, yeah. Then Lokpa means? It means Dokchok. Yeah. That's what we have that in logic. I remember that from logic. I say, yeah, maybe. Kor, lo, ki, Lokpa? Huh? Yeah, Koryuk Lopa. Korchuk Lopa. Yeah, okay, maybe. We'll have to check that, I don't know. We may be making up a new term for Tibetan. Maybe it doesn't exist. Okay, this concept. So, Korchuk Lopa. Good. So now we'll give some examples of really what that means, okay? We'll go give some examples. So this will be the vicious cycle, Korchuk Lopa, of heart failure. Pathophysiology means just the, what's the mechanism, okay? Biologic mechanism, okay? So, this is chamber dilatation. What does that mean? A fancy word, what does it mean? Huh? Chamber just means the ventricle, or we could even say the heart. And what is dilatation? To dilate? Yeah, exactly, it gets big. Good. So this just means big heart. That's all. Okay? Big heart, chamber dilatation. So we got a big heart, and then we have some stress in the wall, okay, for whatever reason. Maybe we'll go into this, the different causes of heart failure. Might have been a heart attack, okay? It might have been chronic high blood pressure over years, causes some damage in the heart muscle wall, so stress, okay? And because of the enlarged heart and the stress on the wall from a heart attack or chronic high blood pressure, we have ventricular dysfunction. What's dysfunction mean? I think, please, louder. Sorry? Huh? What's dysfunction? Not working well, right? Not working well. Okay, so, and what's ventricular? What's the ventricle? Yeah, one of the chambers in the heart. We said one of the two big chambers in the heart. So it means that when we get a big heart, a dilated heart, and the wall or the muscle, as Pamela told us, is not working so well, okay, then we get ventricular dysfunction. What does that mean? What happens when we have ventricular dysfunction? Huh? What happens? What happens to the pump? What happens to the pump? The heart's pumping action. Yes. Lower, exactly. It doesn't work well. Good. So it's not very effective as a pump. The heart is pumping less. Okay, good. So then, because the heart's not pumping well, we have these neurohormones released by the brain. And they go and they tell the heart, hey, you're not doing such a good job. Let's kind of do a better job. Okay, that's what the hormones tell the heart. Coming from the brain, neurohormones, and they say, please pump better. That's what they say. Okay? Okay. So these neurohormones have some side effects. So one of them is adrenaline. Okay? So if a big dog, like you're in Tibet and you're going into a village and a mastiff, one of these massive big dogs, starts running at you barking, what do? You run as fast as you can, right? And you have these adrenalines going in your body that help you run faster. They help the muscles, okay? And you go, let's get out of here, okay? So these neurohormones are going to cause the arteries to constrict, to try to preserve pressure in the system. At the same time, some of those arteries that are constricting are in the veins, renal, kidney. Did I say veins? I'm sorry, in the kidneys. Some of the arteries that are constricting or getting smaller are in the kidneys. And then we get renal vasoconstriction, or just constriction of the arteries in the kidneys. And then the kidneys stop working well, okay, because they need to get the blood supply. Okay, so these are side effects from the neurohormones that are trying to make the pump stronger, the heart muscle. Okay, so when we get this constriction in the renal arteries and generally the constriction of the arteries, it causes more of a strain on the heart, and its ability to function or pump reduces even further. So what do we call this? What's the general name for this? When we try to help something, but the opposite happens. Dokchok. What did we? Korlochuk. Korchuk. Lokpa. So what do we call that in English? Vicious cycle. Okay? So it's trying to help by making these neurohormones, but the opposite makes things worse. Okay. Also, these neurohormones increase the heart rate. You know what adrenaline is. Do you know what adrenaline is? You know, if you got a big mastiff coming barking at you and you go running, what happens to your heart rate? Faster. It goes boom, 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 boom. You know, it's trying to get you out of there. Okay. Same thing here. Makes the heart rate faster. And that makes the heart even, it further decreases the ability to function properly, to pump. Okay. It also has what we call toxic effects, this adrenaline. Okay. And that also inhibits or makes the function of the heart worse. This is what we call a vicious cycle. Okay. Okay, that's a hard graph. You're going to have a copy of it, and you can kind of, think about it more and ask questions, maybe to me or others later. Okay. Now, who's our IT specialist? I need an IT specialist. Do we have internet connection here in this room? Do we? Who's our IT person here? Because I need to open those on the internet, and we can see an actual functioning heart. Can you call the person? Thank you very much. So we'll move. Well, we'll wait. What's her name? Dawala. So we'll wait for Dawala to come back. If we can get this working, I'll show you an actual beat. It's a diagram, but it looks like a real heart and actually beating. We can see that. Let's see if we can get it. While we're waiting, you can think of some questions, okay? Think of some questions to ask. Just a few minutes. And if we don't get them going, you can find them in Wikipedia. Okay? You can find them under heart failure. And they'll be down near the end of that, Wikipedia section on heart failure. And then you can actually see the heart pumping. But we're going to try. Has anybody aged since yesterday? Have you aged, gotten older since yesterday? Huh? Yes or no? Yes. Well, that clock is the same as it was yesterday, 10 to 6. So I'm not sure if we've aged or not. Probably we have, but I hope we haven't.
Then it's today the 26th, not the 27th.
Could be. Could be. So Dalai's trying to find our IT people. Thank you. So this is a diagram of the heart cut open. Thank you. So there are 4 chambers here. Let me see if I can identify them. There's 2 big ones here, one here, and there's one here. Okay, those are the 2 ventricles. And we're looking at this directly, so that's the left side. Okay? It's like you're looking at me. When you look at my left side, it's on your right, isn't it? Yeah? Same thing here. When we look at the heart, the left side is on our right, over here. That's the left ventricle, and this is the right ventricle. Any luck, or?
It's coming on.
It's coming. Okay, we'll try. If we're not successful, if you go to Wikipedia and you put in heart failure and go near the end of the section, you'll find these 2 URLs, these sites. Just click on them and you'll see the 3D, or well, not quite 3D, but animated beating of the heart. It looks real. It's not a real heart. It's a drawing, but it looks real. So maybe we'll get it today. If not, you can do that yourself. Okay? Great. So this is a drawing of a heart. Okay. These are the 2 ventricles, the large chambers. The right one here and the left one. Okay. And then we have 2 atrium, the smaller chambers. One up here, that would be on the right side. And one on the left, we don't see it very well because there's other things there, but it would be here. Okay? So those are important. And here we see the aorta, which is the largest artery, leaving from the left ventricle. Okay? And that's going to take oxygen blood to the whole body. Okay, now why do we have 2 ventricles? Anybody have an idea? What else have we not talked about here? How does the blood get oxygenated? Lungs. So how do we get the blood to the lungs to oxygenate it? How do we do that? How do we get the blood to the lungs to oxygenate it? Sorry? Yeah. Which one? Yeah. What's your name? Chuni? Chuyin. It's a short for 2 names, right? Chuyin. No? Chuyin. Good. Very nice. You get the gold star today. Nice. So that's what we need the right ventricle for, to pump the blood that's deoxygenated, right, the blue stuff, pump it to the heart, okay? And then when it goes through, pump it to the lungs, to the lungs. And when it goes to the lungs, the blood gets oxygen, gets red again. And then the pulmonary veins bring that blood back to the left side of the heart, okay? Which then pumps, and the oxygenated blood goes out the aorta and gives oxygen to all the tissues. So we have 2 parallel systems of pumping, the left side and the right side. The left side is pumping the oxygenated blood out to the whole body, okay? And the right side is pumping the deoxygenated blood to the lungs to get oxygenated. Okay? And then that blood from the lungs comes back to the left side, fills into the left ventricle. Actually, it'll come in the left atrium and then come into the left ventricle, and then it's pumped out the aorta. So you have two parallel systems, but they're interconnected. Okay? Now, I have a difficult question for you. What happens to the baby in the womb before it's born? How does its oxygen, how does the baby get its oxygen? Are the lungs working in a fetus, a baby before it's born? Are the lungs working? No. Some of you are shaking your heads no. Then how does the blood get oxygenated in the fetus? If the lungs aren't working, then how? Because obviously it's not breathing air, right? The baby's inside the womb. So how does the baby's blood get oxygenated? Guess. What do you think? What? Huh? Ama katin chembo. This is the incredible kindness of the mother. It's the mother's. Lungs. Because you know you have these arteries that go through the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord. You know the umbilical cord? How do you say this in Tibetan? Sorry? Dewa? Dewa like in bliss? Dewa? Dewa Chambo? No. No. Is it a different word? Tewa. Dewa. Dewa. It's the ta-ta-da. It's the dewa. Da. Tawa. Tewa. 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 I'm hopeless. Okay. So through the tewa, the blood of the baby, the fetus goes and it gets oxygenated in the mother's body, and then comes back through the umbilical vein to the baby's heart as oxygenated blood, or maybe it comes back through it comes back through the umbilical artery, okay, from the mother, oxygenated blood, and that's how the baby gets its blood oxygenated, the fetus, through the mother's circulation via the umbilical artery and vein. Good, good. Okay, so now the heart has 4 chambers, right, or 4 rooms, right? What connects the 4 rooms? Yeah, valves. Good, good, good. 2 gold stars. I didn't get it. Chuni? Not Chuni. Huh? Chuying. Oh, Chuying, I know very well. Chuying's a beautiful name. Chuying. Wow, 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 wow. It's a Dzogchen term for vastness like the sky. Lost our power. Vastness like the sky means emptiness. Very nice. Chuying. The light stayed on. Oh, there we have power again. Thank you. Tuche. So, where were we? Valves. Good. So what connects the 4 chambers of the heart? Valves. What kind of valves are they? Huh? Sorry? What kind of valves are they? 2-way valves? Blood can go both ways? 1-way valves. Boy, she's collecting gold stars today. Chewing has 3 of them. Good. 1-way valves, unless they're diseased. Then the blood can go 2 ways if it's a diseased valve. But normally, 1-way valves. Okay? It keeps the circulation going in one direction. Good. So let's see, we lost our... See if we can get this back. So the valves, how many valves are there in the heart? Guess. 4. Good. Pema and, what's your name, please? Kerzin. Kerzin gets another gold star. He had one yesterday or first day? First day. Good. So there are 4 valves, one-way valves, as Cheng-La was telling us, one-way valves, 4 of them in the heart. Okay? And it's just because there are 4 rooms or chambers, and so we have to have a connection so the blood can keep flowing, and it's through a valve. So a valve is a little bit like a door that can open or close. Okay? In a normal valve or heart, it doesn't stay open. So when the blood is passing through, the door is open. When the blood is finished passing through, the door closes. That's a one-way valve. Okay? Good. Are we going to get this back, do you think? Or maybe will we get the PowerPoint back? Oh, it's coming. Good. Very nice. We got it. Good. Great.
Coming and going together.
Sorry? Oh.
Going and coming.
We're losing our... Okay, they're working on it. They'll get it. Good. So that's basically the anatomy of the heart. Okay. Maybe you have some questions. Password we don't have. I see. So we're stuck. We're stuck. Not possible. Who has the password? Pema Dojila? Says he's on the way. So maybe if we're lucky. Okay. Pamela will come. Very good. Very good. Okay, so we'll get our slides in a few minutes. So let's go to some questions. We're actually almost done. I think I have one more slide of this vicious cycle to look at from a little different perspective, and then I think that's it. So, do you have some questions? Do you have any questions? Please, yes.
Good evening, sir. My question is about the congenital disease.
Yes.
But today I want to go a little bit inside degenerative disease.
Good.
There's a disease called FOP, fibrodysplasia ossificans and progressiva, which ossified the whole body into like a human statue. Is it a congenital disease? And if it is so, then it gets the whole body get ossified as the age grows up. So in some way it becomes degenerative disease. So what is the type of disease it is?
Yeah, good question. And I think you're implying that here's an example of a degenerative disease in a young person, not an old person. Yeah, good. I think you're right. I think it is. You could. Generally we classify that as a biochemistry disease, a disease of metabolism. You know the word metabolism? Kind of means biochemistry in the body. Mostly the blood, but anywhere in the body. So it's on that molecular level of biochemistry. And usually there are genetic problems. Okay? And if there are genetic problems, then genetic problems can manifest during utero. So they would be a congenital disease, that is, they'd be there when the baby is born. Or some genetic diseases are present, the potential is there, but they don't manifest. Sometimes never, and other times they manifest later in life. So on this one, I'm no expert, but I would guess that it would probably manifest during childhood, maybe not at birth. You wouldn't notice it at birth. So therefore, we probably would not call it a congenital disorder. But it would be a disorder of metabolism, and the potential would be there at birth, but we wouldn't know it. There wouldn't be any signs of the rapid aging, of the calcification, ossification. Good. How'd you learn about that disease?
Through Wikipedia.
I see. Okay, good. Wonderful, wonderful. Good. Any other questions? Oh, we're getting this back. Good, good, good. Thank you, thank you. It's the DDX, it's got to be it's DDX, but it's the PowerPoint one. Is that PowerPoint? I think so. Great. And would you go down and give me the slideshow? Yeah, super. Thank you very much. Now, we have a question. Yeah, I'll put it up. Can we open those? Is it possible? Boy, this would be fantastic if we can do it. I know there's a way to embed the actual GIF or the video, but I don't know how to do it, so I just put up the URL. First one, if we have a choice, can you do the first one? Yeah, thanks. So these are like cartoons, yeah? They're, different frames, or like a film, different frames. Oh, there we go, super. Yeah, fantastic, thank you very much. So let's look at that for a moment, and then we'll go to the next one. This is the beating heart, and actually, it may actually be a heart, okay? Picture of a heart. So can you go back to it for us? Can you return? Yeah. So we see these are the two large chambers here, and that's the left ventricle. And you'll notice that the wall is a little thicker. Can you notice that? Okay. And so that's pumping the blood out here. That's the aorta. That's the aortic valve, and that's the aorta. So it's pumping the oxygenated blood out to the heart. Okay. This side is the right ventricle, and it's receiving blood from the lungs it's pumping blood that's deoxygenated to the lungs. Okay? And then that deoxygenated blood from the lungs comes back to this left ventricle and gets pumped out through the aortic valve, through the aorta and out the body. Okay, good. Can we have the next one, please? Thank you. Good. So this one, you can see it in slow motion, okay? So it's a little easier. Well, we just lost the slow motion, but anyway, it's bigger. We can see it better. So, do you see these things here? These are called chordae tendae, something. And what they are is they're supports for the valve. See, there's a valve there? So this is the aortic valve where the blood's going out to the body, and this is the mitral valve where the blood is coming from this ventricle, the atrium, this guy, into the left ventricle from the lungs. Okay? And this is there's a pulmonary valve, that may be the pulmonary valve, and then there's going to be a fourth valve. So this is aortic, this is mitral, this is pulmonary, and there's one more valve we don't see. So these are the atria, right one and left one. And that's the aorta there. Okay? Good. Is that the second one or the first one again? Was that the second URL?
This was the second URL.
Second URL, good. So it's basically the same thing, just larger. Very nice. Thank you very much. And we'll go back to the regular slides. So, that we've already done. That's the anatomy of the heart. What's this? I thought it was kind of fun, interesting. What is this? Sorry? Heart Middle Chinese. What's that? It's a character from the Chinese language in some middle period, so a long time ago. I don't know exactly when, but probably many centuries ago. That's the character in Chinese at that time for heart. That's kind of nice because it suggests kind of four chambers. Suggests. Yeah. Interesting. A long time ago. What's this? Is that I love you? This is from Georgian script, and it means heart. Okay? Now what's that? That looks pretty cool, yeah? Who did that? When was it done? Sorry? Leonardo da Vinci. When was it drawn?
1400.
When did he live?
Around 1480.
1400s, in the 15th century, so about 500 years ago. Okay? He was pretty accurate with many of his anatomical drawings, Leonardo da Vinci. And this is the last slide. This is the vicious cycle again, but it's just presenting it from a slightly different perspective. Okay? So when we have some kind of injury to the heart muscle, myo means muscle. I don't think we've had that word yet. Myo means muscle, and cardio means heart. So it's injury to the heart muscle from whatever cause. Okay. Then what happens to the performance or the function of our ventricle? It gets better, same, or worse? Worse. Okay. So then decreased ventricular performance. Okay, it doesn't work as well. What's cardiac output? CO, cardiac output. Not CO2, but CO. What does it mean? Kessel's got something cooking there. He's not sure. What is cardiac output? What's output? Work rate, kind of, yeah, work rate. It's what you do, your output. Let's say you're a translator. How many pages of text are you translating in a day? That's your output. Okay? If you're a movie star, how many Grammys, do you get, awards for your movies in a year or a decade? Okay? Good. So output, cardiac output means how much blood the heart is pumping. Okay, that's the cardiac output. So it reduces. Why? We're not pumping as much blood. Why? What's wrong with our pump? It's not working so well. Exactly. Okay, now we're talking about heart failure, right? Heart failure. So when the amount of blood that's being pumped is reduced, then our neurohormones, our sympathetic adrenaline stuff starts kicking up. It starts making more. Brain makes more. Or the adrenal glands make more of it. These guys on the kidney. They make more of it because they are asking, they're trying to get the heart to work better. It's a response. As a result of this adrenaline, the blood vessels narrow, constrict. Try to preserve blood pressure. Try to preserve cardiac output. And as a result, what happens to the kidneys? They don't work as well. And if the kidneys are not working, then what happens? What's the job of the kidneys? Yeah, filtration. Get rid of extra fluid, water, and salts and other, chemicals. So those build up in the body. And that's why the person gets edematous. The pitting edema, who was my person here yesterday? Was it Kerzin? No, who was it? Pema? Excuse me, what's your name? Boom. Boom. Boom? B-O-O-M? Boom. Boomla told us yesterday that it was like holes, pitting edema, right? Okay. Why does all that edema happen in the lungs, in the jugular vein, right? In the legs? Because the kidneys aren't getting rid of the extra water. They're not working so well. Because their arteries are constricted, they're narrowed. It happens everywhere in the body. Arteries get narrowed because of these neurohormones. Okay? And that, because the arteries get constricted, it means that the heart has to pump harder, more pressure. And that causes a further decrease in the performance of the pump. Vicious cycle. Little bit clear? So all the attempts in the body to compensate, to make things better, turn out making things worse. That's a vicious cycle. Good. And here's the neurohormones. Here's the picture of the brain. Okay? Some of you already have seen me on Facebook. If you haven't, please come. I have a public figure site for education. Take a look at it, see if you like it. If you like it, then like the page and you'll get the posts. And if you do like it, share it with your other friends, not only Sowa Rigpa, but also here at Cuts. Okay? Because they may like to. It's nice. I would love to have you all part of the community. We have a big community. We have over a boom. We have, I think, 130,000 people. But I would love to have more Tibetan students. So pass the word. This is altruism medicine, .org. You have it on your handout. That's a nonprofit that I set up about 3 years ago to bring more compassion into healthcare. Okay. You're welcome to look at our website. And we have a group, Human Values Institute in Japan, where we do similar kind of work in Japan. Thank you. So maybe we have some last questions. Please feel free. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to kind of go for the perfect question. It doesn't matter. Anything that is a little bit confusing or you have a question about, you're welcome to ask. Please, Pamela.
I have one question. My question is that.
Is it on there, or maybe the batteries are low? Not working so well. Okay. There we go.
My question is that, is it possible to read heart disease by checking the radial arteries?
Again, please, is it possible to
Is it possible to read heart disease?
read heart disease?
No heart disease.
No heart disease. Mm-hmm.
By checking the radial arteries?
I think it was Yeshidundan. Remember I told you the story the first day at Harvard Medical School? I think it was Amsi Yeshidundan was asked to see a patient, and all he did was check the radial artery pulse. And then they came out of the room into the hall, and all the doctors, the Harvard Medical School doctors, they discussed with Amsi Yeshidundan. They said, Amchila, or they said, I don't know what they said. Please, what did you find? And he said that there was some kind of wind going in the wrong direction. The doctors were surprised because they could not diagnose this on their examination. They needed to do other kind of testing. And the patient had a large hole in the heart. I'll show you where it was here. A hole between the two ventricles. We call that a ventricular septal defect, VSD. Hole between the two ventricles, right here, hole. And Yeshidunla was able to diagnose that only by doing the pulse and looking at the person. So I think the answer is yes. From a modern medical perspective, we don't have the knowledge. Okay? But from a traditional Tibetan medicine or Sowa Rigpa perspective, you do, or you're gaining the knowledge to make those diagnoses. Yes. Can you do it every time? I don't know. I guess it depends on how good the Sowa Rigpa doctor is. But the modern medicine doctors cannot do this by just looking at the pulse or feeling the pulse. They need to do other kind of imaging, particularly an echocardiogram or other kind of tests. So that means collaboration becomes very, very important between the Sowa Rigpa doctor and modern medicine doctor and even doctors of other traditions. So working collaboration is always best for the patient. That's always been my belief and still is my belief. Any other questions? Please, Kesala.
My question is regarding the vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that you've written arrhythmia, heart rate arrhythmia in the slides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far as I know, or is it safe to assume that arrhythmia can mean the irregular heartbeat, right? So
Yeah.
to assume, it could be either fast or it could be really low, right?
You're exactly right.
So
Yes.
During your presentation, it seemed more like during the vicious cycle, the heart rate would go up. Like
Mhm.
it would be faster, but
Mhm.
is it possible that it would go slow, very low or something?
Yeah, very good. Excellent. I think your thinking is correct. So arrhythmia just means an abnormal heart rate. So there are a number of possibilities. One is that it's fast. Another is that it's slow. Another is that it's irregular. We actually call that third one irregularly irregular, because there's two types of irregular heartbeat. One is where you have extra beats, either coming from the ventricle going the wrong way, I'm sorry. Either coming from the ventricle wall, usually left ventricle wall, or coming from the atrial wall. We don't see the atrium well, but the wall here. So the ventricle extra beat is called a ventricular, what do we call it? VPC. Ventricular. It's an extra beat from the ventricle, arising from the ventricle. And it sounds like this. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Okay? It's basically regular, but some irregular extra beats coming. Either VPCs coming from the ventricle or from the atrium, APCs. Okay? That's one kind of irregular heartbeat, where it's basically regular, but there's some extra beats. The other kind is called, and I mentioned this and I gave you an example, is atrial fibrillation, where this atrium, rather than beating and pushing the blood into the left ventricle on a regular basis, which is normal, it does it on an irregular basis. So this left atrium is kind of doing this a little bit. Okay? And then we get bum ba 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 bum 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 bum. Very, we call that irregularly irregular. Just technical terms, okay? So all those are arrhythmias. So too fast, too slow, and then extra beats either from the ventricle or atrium, VPCs or APCs, and atrial fibrillation, which is irregularly irregular. Okay, so all those things can happen with an arrhythmia. With heart failure, what we can see atrial fibrillation. People do when the heart gets big, we can see atrial fibrillation. And when that happens, the ability of the heart to function, to pump, reduces. This would be a vicious cycle, right? Because it's trying to help, but it ends up making things worse. If what usually happens is because of the neurohormones, it increases usually the heart rate. At one point when the heart is getting too weak, it just can't keep up. Then what happens? The heart rate falls. And that's an ominous, very serious sign. And then the patient may die at that point. It's a very hard, it's a very serious point when in heart failure, the heart rate slows down. Good. Very good question. Other questions? You don't have to go for a gold star, it doesn't matter. You can just ask any question you like. Please feel free. I'm not giving you a grade, don't worry. Okay, comfortable, reasonably comfortable. Okay, I want to ask you for a show of hands. How many people understood zero? Nothing at all. Raise your hands. Nothing. How many people understood absolutely everything? 100%. Raise your hand. Okay, good, good, good. How many people understood about 25%, roughly? Raise your hands. About 25%. 50%. About half. Many of you. Very good, very good. How about 75%? You understood about 75% of the material. Anybody? Raise your hands. I know you're shy. Okay, I think I have one hand. Thank you. Yes, I know you did. Good. Very good. Okay. Now, tomorrow I'm not available. I'm going right after lunch. I have to go into Varanasi. And you have a class in the morning, I think until 11, I was told. Is that right? Yeah. If you want, on Sunday morning, if you want, we can have another class. If you're really interested, if a large group of you, number of you are interested, we can have another class. If not, we'll just, normally Sunday you're free. Do your washing and relax and hang out with your friends. Should we take I don't know, you may be embarrassed if we do a show of hands. I don't know. What's the best way to decide? What do you think? Good. Okay. Now I want an honest answer, please. If you don't want to come Sunday, it's perfectly fine, really. But I just need to know if there's a real interest. Most of the people want to have a class, then we'll do it. If most of the people have other things to do, that's perfectly fine also. Okay? So how many people would like to have a class? And I think what we'll do is we'll review what we've done so far. We'll do a review and we'll have a lot of discussion. We'll do it for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. How many people would like a class on Sunday morning? Raise your hands. So we have maybe 3/4. Okay. So let's do a class on Sunday morning. And I'll speak with Tashidola and Amchila, and we'll figure out what's the best time. What time do you guys like? Early, late, mid-morning? What's a good time for you all?
Before lunch we have another class.
On Sunday. What time is your class on Sunday?
From
9 to 12:30. So we can't do it on Sunday morning, can we?
Is it possible after lunch?
After lunch. Yeah, I think it's possible. So, sorry? Sunday morning, you have a class, right? Dr. Rinpoche, good. On Sunday morning. Good, good, good. Your class tomorrow morning, I was told, ends at 11. Is that right? So, you have a presentation at 12 tomorrow.
From 9:30 to maybe it will end by 9:30 to 12:30.
12:30. So I can't do it because I'm leaving at 1. So tomorrow doesn't work. So I'll let you all discuss among yourselves
Yes.
about Sunday afternoon, after lunch. You know, maybe around 1:32 or something. You discuss it, and then you get back, tell your teachers, tell Tashi Dawala or tell Rakdo Rinpoche or somebody, okay? And then they will inform me. Okay, I'm available if you'd all like, and if we can logistically work it out. Very good. Good. Thank you. Tell me what year you're in. How many are in first year? Raise your hands. First year students. We have a lot of you. Okay, very good. Second year. Very good. A lot of first and second year. Third year? 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth year? Fifth year? 2, 3 of you. Very good. And no sixth year. I think it's just a 5-year program. Okay. Good. Very nice. So mostly first and second year students. Very good. Excellent. The 3 of you that are in the 5th year, I wasn't.
We have only 4 students.
4 students in the 5th year. 4 students. Was I? You didn't see me before, did you? I think I must have come 5 or 6 years ago, maybe just before you started. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. See you later. Bye-bye.